Alright everybody, I'm going to give you 5 books that you should read that I've read, and it's going to be a 5-book recommendation for today's Vlogmas. If you guys want to check out my 5 books that I recommended for everybody to read, I posted it like 7 months ago, maybe a year ago. I'll post that vlog right there. You can click that link and check that out and then come back and watch this. But 5 books, I'm probably going to drop like 6 or 7, but 5 books in order, maybe not in order, I don't know, that you should be reading probably maybe by the end of 2022, you know, look into it. So let's go. Alright everyone, so there's no order that I'm going in with these books. I got my Jocko juice right here. My camera's slipping. Hold on. Alright, we're good. Slide this chair up. Alright, book number 1 I'm going to recommend. This is not going to be top 5. This is not going to be in my 5 because this was in my last book recommendation video. I know, I'm all over the place. I just got home from work. But Fingerprints of the Gods. Like I said, this is going to be the only book from the last video. The only reason I'm going to say this is because this book, Graham Hancock, author. If you never heard of Graham Hancock, you can watch a podcast with him and Joe Rogan, figure out, you know, what he's about, what his thinking is, where his research kind of dives into, where his thinking kind of goes. And this book is phenomenal. As you can see, you got the Sphinx right here. He breaks down basically the mythological stories of the Sphinx, the Viracocha, which is in South America, Quetzalcoatl in Mexico, North America technically, and just a phenomenal book about ancient civilizations, lost civilizations, hidden history, maybe like a lost history, I guess you can say, stories lost in translation, history lost in stories lost in translation, and it's just a phenomenal book. It will change, this book will change the way you think about life for the rest of your life, and change the way you take in information, change the way you accept information, and change the way you accept definitive narratives about science and history, civilization, I guess you can say. It really challenges your thoughts. It challenges mainstream stories. It challenges mainstream science. This was written in 1995. It was very controversial at the time, and some of the things he said eventually kind of came true. They found more evidence. It's been solidified ever since. Graham Hancock, phenomenal author, great storytelling, and just a completely mind-changing, mind-altering book. Totally recommend. Very thick. We're looking at like 600 pages. We're looking at like about 500 pages, but totally recommend learning about precession of the equinox, the Sphinx, the pyramids of Giza, the different people that are coming, Jesus, stories, the Viracocha, Quetzalcoatl. I don't even know, but check it out. Fingerprints of the Gods, Graham Hancock. Let's go on to our top 5 list, baby. Let's go. All right, so the first book on this list is Drunk by Edward Slingerland. I believe he's a professor at British Columbia. Yes, he is. University of British Columbia. I found this guy. He was actually on Joe Rogan this year or last year. And the title goes, How We Sipped, Danced, and Stumbled Our Way into Civilization. And basically, this is a phenomenal book. It basically argues that alcohol was used for much longer of a time than we originally thought, you know, literally thousands, tens of thousands of years ago. Like that book I just showed you, Fingerprints of the Gods, there's a place called Göbekli Tepe found in Istanbul, Turkey, I believe it is, but in Turkey, and it dates back to about 12,500 years ago, 10,500 BC, okay? And even there, they had a pyramid type of civilization that they buried, ancient civilization, but they also had areas where they would meet and gather and have these huge like kind of drunk rituals and have these big pitchers full of alcohol and beers and stuff like that. And it really has a great argument of how alcohol was used in civilization, why it was used, and there's a certain perspective that maybe people were so inclined to getting drunk and high that they were very let's say they were more willing, I guess you could say, to create civilization and create, you know, wheat fields and farms to try to create alcohol and change their consciousness. Because humans, we know, a lot of people don't want to admit this, but humans love living in a different state of consciousness. Either that's caffeine, alcohol, tobacco, nicotine, marijuana, whatever you want to claim is a drug, maybe not a drug. At the end of the day, it does change our consciousness. Drunk, it's just fascinating. Like, I'll give you this one little fact right here. Back in the day, a lot of civilizations and cities that had stagnant water, disease-filled water with illnesses and parasites and all this different stuff, what they would have to do was basically ferment their water and create a very light alcohol, weak beer, I guess you could say. They would basically be drinking alcohol and beer and wine all day because the alcohol would kill the parasites and the disease in the water, but you wouldn't be able to drink the water without the alcohol because it's so disease ridden. So then you have to create beer, and you're basically drinking light beer all day. So that is a great little fact that you never really think of until like you're in a civilization and your water's dirty and you gotta drink beer for the rest of your life. So it's really interesting, and yeah, that's one fact about Drunk. But definitely check out the book Drunk. Not too long, about 200-300 pages, but really fun book, and just a great read. All right, I have a very different book as well. Jesus and the Dead Sea Scrolls by John Bergsma, revealing the Jewish roots of Christianity. Okay, so I'm not a super religious guy. Please don't sit here and be like, oh my god, Luke's number one's gonna be the Bible. He read the Bible and he's changing. No. Relax, all right? This is just a really interesting book. The Dead Sea Scrolls is arguably, and maybe not even arguably, it just completely is, the greatest archaeological find in the 20th century. I think it was found in 1949, I believe it was. And the Dead Sea Scrolls is basically a bunch of scrolls that are written in ancient Hebrew, and they were written in the time where Jesus was supposed to be born and living. And they found that the Dead Sea Scrolls and the scripture on the scrolls relates, if you look at the translation in language, from ancient Hebrew to ancient Greek, which the New Testament was written in, it actually shows that a lot of the New Testament stories, maybe not all of them, but quite a lot of stories from the New Testament were actually completely taken from the Dead Sea Scrolls that were in the caves of Qumran, right outside of Jerusalem, modern day Palestine. And it's just super fascinating, super interesting, gives you a real historical perspective of Jesus, John the Baptist, the Essenian people. They believe if Jesus was real. I know I take a lot of flack for this from some people, but there's not the best amount of historical evidence that Jesus was a real person. I'm sorry if I'm breaking hearts and breaking names, but it is what it is. I'm allowed to think what I want to think. All right. But that being said, they believe that Jesus, maybe John the Baptist, were an Essenian, a sect of Jewish people in Israel at that time, and it was very interesting to learn about the Essenian ways of life and that sect of Judaism that arguably was the creation of modern day Christianity, and where Christianity stemmed from. And that's the idea of revealing the Jewish roots in Christianity. But definitely check this book out if you're interested in anything, religious, Jesus, anything like that, ancient times. Jesus and the Dead Sea Scrolls, phenomenal read, just really eye-opening. Something that I'm kind of interested in. Again, the historical aspect of Jesus to me is very interesting. Yeah, check that out. Not too bad. All right, so this book right here is going to be a little bit more complex, a little bit more sophisticated, and a little bit more of a difficult read. It is I think the author won the Nobel Prize in Economics, so a very intellectual guy, New York Times bestseller. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow. What's the guy's name? Excuse me, a little burping over here. Daniel Kahneman. Kahneman? That's the guy. All right, so this book is very interesting. Again, very deep, complex, a lot of words, as you can see. And it basically breaks down, there's two ways the human brain operates: thinking fast and thinking slow. When we're thinking slow, we're thinking rational, we're almost thinking laterally. We're like, what will happen? What can happen? What will happen if I do something? What will I feel if I don't do something? Will I regret something? All these thoughts, this is a slow thought process. And there's certain ideas, there's certain parts of the brain that activate, and there's reasons why that happens. There's reasons why your slow part of your brain will activate, but usually your fast part of your brain is activating. So the book also gives you tips to try to work, because the fast part of your brain is basically habits, anything that's habitual. So you build bad habits, you build a bad lifestyle, and those habits become ingrained in your brain, and it's so easy to make those decisions. It's almost decisionless thinking. The brain, this is where it gets tricky, because the brain wants decisionless thinking. It doesn't want the stress of having to go into slow thinking mode, and then it actually uses a lot of calories, which is a whole scientific thing, but it doesn't want to use that time and go into that process. It's lazy. The humans are naturally lazy. And again, it could even be like a calorie, trying to burn calories because it wants to hold the calories, and it could be a whole thing like that. I didn't even think about it like that until now I'm explaining it. The brain wants to think fast. It doesn't want to go slow. It wants answers quick. It wants solutions. So you have to be very careful without tricking yourself, reading clickbait titles. It's a whole conceptual idea of thinking fast. It's very interesting. It's a very, very interesting book. I was traveling across the country when I read it, so I didn't get to read it that fast. It took me quite a while to read it, but I really would like to maybe even read it again. A really deep, interesting, thought-provoking book. Like I said, long, but it really does go into the details, the nitty-gritty, obviously a little bit of the scientific aspects and the literature of what actually is going on in your brain, the limbic system. The limbic system is usually according with fast thinking, so it's all like interaction, like what happens, I have to think fast, so then if you can build, you know, good habits, then your fast thinking will be, you know, more positive for your life and stuff like that. So it's a whole concept, but I do recommend Thinking Fast and Slow. Phenomenal book, very thick, will definitely challenge your reading skills if you're not on that level, but hey, gotta do what you gotta do. Let's get on to the next book. How much do we have? 2 more books, let's go. All right, I'm gonna throw this book in here because I love this guy. My boy, Dr. Carl Hart from University of Columbia, Drug Use for Grown-Ups, Chasing Liberty in the Land of Fear. Okay, Carl Hart is very interesting, man. He's been on Joe Rogan, he's been on Lex Friedman's podcast, he's been on a bunch of different things, platforms and stuff like that, and shared his ideology and his opinion about life and liberty and drugs. And he is a very, very smart guy. I believe he teaches psychology at the, psychology and psychiatry. So he's a very smart guy. He administers drugs to patients and stuff like that. He does a lot of clinical studies, scientific studies, journals, and he's very interesting, and he based a lot of his opinions off science, and he challenges his past opinions that were based on nothing. Based on he said, she said, crackheads are bad people and criminals. It's like, okay, my whole life I've thought this. Now I'm gonna do a scientific research about crackheads, right? And administering people crack and figuring out what actually crack is, explaining what crack does to the body, and then reviewing these people's lives that are now doing crack. And he finds a lot of holes in these narratives and these stigmas behind drug use. And it's very interesting coming from a very intellectual college professor, really smart guy. And he talks about being a black man with dreads and being an advocate of drug use and legalization of drugs. And he says it can bring a lot of negative stigma, just his own skin color and his hairstyle. And that's a shame, but it is the reality of the world we're living in. And it's just really interesting. Like, I love my boy Ben has always said, you know, doing coke puts holes in your brain. You do cocaine, it puts holes in your brain. And Ben is my boy Ben, really smart guy. And for a while, you just take, I'm sure he's heard that from a doctor. And my boy Carl Hart has then come out and like talked about how even he as a doctor has come out and said things that are completely unscientific. They don't really know why they say these things. They're just trying to, you know, say what they think is right. You know, they believe in past stigmas as well. A doctor that's specialized in general surgery is giving his opinion about addiction, and he doesn't really know what he's talking about addiction, even though he is a doctor and he's smart, and we're like, oh, this guy's a doctor, you know, we respect him, we respect his opinion, I'm sure he's right. It's like, I'm sure he's right about a lot of things, but he's a general surgeon and he doesn't know that much about addiction, and that's okay. But now we're shaping laws in America to arrest people for drug use and small drug crimes. And that's the biggest point of this book that I want to emphasize is he actually challenges the ideas of, you know, we should be legalizing some of these drugs. He talks about Portugal, he talks about Canada, and a lot of, that's a very libertarian idea. And a lot of my friends say that's probably not true. We shouldn't be legalizing drugs. And some of my friends are police officers, and I tell them, like, dude, you're wasting our tax dollars. And it's not their fault, right? They're getting told to do that. They're not going to get hired if they don't arrest people that have drugs on them. But at the end of the day, it's a waste of our tax dollars to be arresting a guy for a gram of marijuana, a gram of cocaine, a gram of heroin. Like, is this guy a criminal? We got to get him off the street and throw him in jail because he's gonna go to his house and go shoot up? Like, who really, like, this is a free country. You're allowed to think what you want. So there is an argument, and then he goes into the scientific literature that cocaine doesn't put holes in your brain. Doing bath salts doesn't make you a cannibal. That's not true. And it's really interesting. So if you're interested in drug use and anything like that, and a libertarian idea of legalization of drugs, definitely check out Dr. Carl Hart, Drug Use for Grown-Ups. Let's go. 5th and final book, baby. Let's go. All right, so the 5th and final book, I had to make sure I didn't talk about it in my last book breakdown video and stuff. Guys, check out my channel. I have break down some of these books a little bit deeper and other books and stuff like that, so I don't just talk about the same old stuff. National bestseller right here. This is something that's hot on TikTok. Everyone likes to talk about it because it's banned in jail, or maybe it's the best-selling book in jail. They like to sell that argument. The 48 Laws of Power, baby. Okay, this is OG book. Robert Greene. A lot of people talk about this book, but they ain't never read it, so it's all good. It's all good. 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene. This is a very Machiavellian book, and when I say the word Machiavellian, it's the idea of it goes into the negative, or you could even say the devilish side of human nature, and we all have it. We all interact with this side of ourselves every single day. Right? We can even say the rational and the irrational. And there's a lot of people living very, very irrational. And you know what? There's sometimes where you got to use some rationality and use the 48 Laws of Power, right? This book, it tends to harp on ancient times, and it uses examples from ancient times and stuff like that. So it's very like king and queen, kind of like each story is about a king and a queen. So it's very Maca. It's like, it feels like an ancient, like, royalty kind of book. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of funny, all the hype behind it, but it is a good read. It's a good read, and the reason why it's on this list and the reason why I want to harp on it is because there are some really good things in there. There's some laws in there that I remind myself certain laws every single day. There's really some just factual life knowledge in there that you should remind yourself, and it's good to be able to put it like a vocabulary explanation that like is actually well thought out by another person. It's just a really good perspective, and it just really helps you kind of stay aligned and keep a good perspective. So let's read a couple laws that can give you a perspective of where I'm coming from. Okay, so look, number 4, always say less than necessary. The other day I went out and I was talking to someone, and a lot of times I don't shut the hell up. Seriously, I have a podcast, link in the description, check out my podcast. I can't stop talking. And there's moments where like you talk to someone and you're trying to have a good conversation. Maybe you have a deep conversation. Maybe you have a nice intellectual debate or something like that. And maybe you catch yourself talking too much, and at the end of the debate, you lost the debate because you just didn't shut the fuck up, or you just lost the conversation. And it's not always about winning and losing a conversation, but there is a sense of like, man, like I came out of this conversation a loser because I just talked about myself. I was selfish. I was narcissistic. This guy didn't even say a word. This guy probably doesn't even care about anything that I just said. So now talk this guy's ear off about some stuff he doesn't give a shit about. So now he's probably like negatively judging me, and now I kind of look stupid. I kind of look stupid and full of myself. So that is like, there is a sense of like, always say less than necessary. And sometimes you reveal certain intentions, you reveal certain stories, you reveal maybe a little bit too much information. Maybe you say something that, you know, you said you weren't gonna say, but you believe that, you know, you told someone that's not going to say something, and he goes and says something. It's like, always try to remind yourself, just say a little bit less than what you plan on saying. And that is a good law. It really is a good law. Let's look at another one. Let's get another one. Here's law 7 again. And this is why people say, don't read this book, it's super negative. It's like, all right, if you're a grown person, you're allowed to read whatever you want and come with your own comprehension and you're allowed to figure out your own answers for these things. So number 7, get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. Okay? Like, that's a super bad way of living, but like, if you're gonna freaking like, it's like a business, right? If you're gonna be the business owner, it's okay to allocate work to people, and let's say create content. You have to buy a videographer and an editor, and then you buy a social media marketer, and then your team is building your brand. Okay? They shouldn't get the credit for building your brand. And that's like a deep concept behind it. So let's keep going. One more. Number 19. Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. That's huge. Do not say some dumb stuff. Do not disrespect someone. You don't know what people are capable of, and you don't know what little thing that you might say to someone that actually pisses them off. Like, you might tell someone that you think is genuinely dumb and stupid, and he doesn't really think deeply about life, and you're like, this kid's dumb. It's like, bro, you're just kind of dumb. He might think about that for the rest of his life, because he might be dumb to you, but he's smart to himself, which is like, that just goes to show humans, right? But at the end of the day, like, he might go out for the rest of his life and just kind of like, you, man, I'm going out of my way to make sure you don't get a job. Like, if I know you're applying here, I'm gonna make sure this, that, and they will try to help your downfall and go out of their way to watch you downfall. and fail. And you don't want to have enemies in life. You don't want to deal with those kind of people. And you don't have to. You don't have to. If you're nice and you're respectful, and you don't have to degrade, you're not better than anyone. Always remember, you're not, even if you're rich and you're good looking, you're not better than anyone. You don't deserve anything that someone else has or doesn't have. And yeah, this book, again, 48 Laws of Power, there are some things that are very Machiavellian and a little negative, and you're like, whoa, I should not be applying that in my life. But some people are using that way of thinking against you, and it's good to realize that stuff. So 48 Laws of Power, check that stuff out. Guys, this is all I got. All right, Vlogmas day 15. Guys, check out I went snowboarding yesterday. Check that vlog out. You got the 48 Laws of Power. You got Drug Use for Grown-Ups. You got Thinking Fast and Slow. Dead Sea Scrolls with Jesus. You got Drunk. Go get drunk, guys. Come on. No, don't get drunk and don't blame it on me. But read a book. If you want to get drunk, read a book. Drop in the comments, what's your favorite book? Have you read any of these things? Smash that like button. Stay tuned for more videos. Like I said, podcast link in the description. Check out my Instagram. Check everything out. Links in the description. Smash that like button. Deuces.